The sea, a restless mistress always hungry. For some, she's a provider. For the Vikings, she was a warpath. They sailed out of the mist, out of the cold north, looking for glory, for gold, for a good fight. These weren't your poets and storytellers. These were men forged in the fires of war, their names whispered with fear and awe. This is the top 10, the most bloodthirsty Viking warlords. These bastards weren't afraid of death. Hell, they probably spit in its face. They were gods of war, carving their names in blood and bone. From the frozen fjords to the sunny shores of foreign lands, they left a trail of chaos and carnage. We're diving deep into their world, the battles, the bloodshed, the legends that made them more than just men. Get ready for tales of betrayal, vengeance, and a whole lot of axes. They called him Boneless, but don't let that fool you. Ivar was twisted, sure, maybe not in body, but in his mind, in the way he fought. He was a chess master of war, outsmarting his enemies, crushing them with a cunning you wouldn't believe. England trembled at the mention of his name. His great heathen army, a storm of steel and fury, swept through the land, leaving a trail of fire and broken bodies. He was ruthless, driven by a need for vengeance that burned hotter than any forge. Some say he was a berserker, a warrior possessed by a primal rage. Others that he was a master strategist, a brilliant mind trapped in a broken body. Whatever the truth, Ivar the Boneless left his mark on history, a scar carved deep in the heart of England. They say he died peacefully, which for Ivar is hard to imagine. But the fear he instilled that lingered long after his bones turned to dust. He was a legend, a nightmare made flesh, and the echo of his brutality still whispers through the ages. Don't ever underestimate the cripple, especially one with an axe and a score to settle. Bloodaxe. The name says it all, doesn't it? This wasn't a man who shied away from violence. Erik was a storm of fury, a whirlwind of chaos, carving his path to power with blood and betrayal. He was a king, yeah, but not the kind who sits on a throne, fat and content. Erik craved power, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get it. He fought his own brothers, spilled family blood on the frozen ground, all for the right to call himself ruler. His reign was a bloodbath, a constant struggle for control. Enemies feared his ruthlessness. His own people, well, they walked on eggshells, never knowing when his temper would erupt. He was a monster to some, a hero to others. But one thing's for sure. Erik Bloodaxe left a crimson stain on Viking history, a stark reminder that ambition can be a powerful drug. They say he died fighting, which seems about right for a man like him. But his legend, soaked in blood and violence, continues to fascinate and repulse us, even after all these centuries. Ragnar Lothbrok. Now there's a name that echoes through the ages, a Viking larger than life, a man who straddled the line between myth and reality. He was a raider, a warrior, a goddamn legend. He terrorized the coasts of England and France, his longships appearing out of the mist like wolves on the hunt. They say he had eyes that could see into a man's soul, and a laugh that could shake the very foundations of the earth. Ragnar was a force of nature, unstoppable, unyielding. He lived for the thrill of the raid, the clash of steel, the taste of victory. He was a warrior's warrior, a man who lived and breathed battle. His saga is a tapestry of epic battles, daring raids and cunning strategies. He sacked Paris, humiliated kings, and amassed a fortune in plunder. Ragnar Lothbrok wasn't just a king. He was a symbol of the Viking spirit, wild, unpredictable, and utterly unstoppable. But every legend, no matter how grand, eventually meets its end. Ragnar's demise was as dramatic and brutal as his life, a fitting end for a man who lived by the sword. But his name, his legend, lived on, inspiring fear and awe in equal measure. Chapter 4. Harald Hardrada. The name means hard ruler, and trust me, he lived up to it. This Viking was a goddamn emperor, a warrior king with ambitions that stretched as far as the horizon. He wasn't content with just a small kingdom in the frozen north. He fought his way from the icy plains of Norway to the sun-drenched battlefields of the Byzantine Empire. He was a Varangian guard, a personal bodyguard to the emperor himself. Imagine that, a Viking keeping watch over Constantinople. But Harald wasn't meant to be a lapdog. He returned to Norway, a conquering hero, and claimed his birthright. He united his people, crushed his enemies, and built a kingdom on a foundation of blood and iron. He was a warrior without equal, a king who led from the front, his axe singing a deadly song on the battlefield. He craved power, sure, but he also craved respect, and he got it through sheer force of will and the point of his blade. In the end, Harald Hardrada met his end at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, fighting for what he believed in. He went down swinging, a true Viking warrior. His dreams of conquest may have died with him, but his legend, the legend of the hard ruler, continues to inspire. Chapter 5. Bjorn Ironside. Even his name sounds like it could split shields and shatter bones. This Viking wasn't just a warrior, he was a goddamn explorer, a restless spirit with a hunger for the unknown. He sailed further than most men dreamt, venturing into the uncharted waters of the Mediterranean. They called him Ironside because he was said to be impervious to blades. Now, whether that's true or not, the man had balls of steel, that's for sure. He raided along the coasts of Spain, fought the Moors in North Africa, and even set his sights on Rome itself. Bjorn was a different breed of Viking, a man driven by curiosity as much as by greed. He wanted gold, sure, but he also wanted to see the world, to test himself against the best warriors, to experience all that life had to offer. He was a born leader, inspiring his men with his courage and his thirst for adventure. He sailed through storms that would make lesser men weep, fought battles against impossible odds, and emerged victorious. Bjorn Ironside's story is a reminder that the Vikings weren't just barbarians, they were explorers, traders, and yes, ruthless conquerors. They were complex, driven by a multitude of desires, and Bjorn embodied that spirit perfectly. He lived a life full of adventure and died a legend, his name forever etched in the sagas. Chapter 6. Sigurd, Snake in the Eye. Even his name sounds like a bad omen. This Viking was a force of nature, a warrior with a gaze that could curdle blood. They said he had a marking in his eye, a serpent coiled around his pupil, a sign of his cunning and ruthlessness. He was the son of Ragnar Lothbrok, and he inherited his father's thirst for glory and vengeance. Sigurd was a key figure in the great heathen army, the Viking force that ravaged England like a pack of wolves. He was known for his brutal raids, his cunning strategies, and his unwavering determination. Sigurd was a warrior's warrior, a man who thrived in the chaos of battle. They say he could cleave a man in two with a single blow, and that his laughter sounded like the howling of wolves. But Sigurd was more than just a brute. He was a shrewd leader, a master strategist who knew how to exploit his enemies' weaknesses. He was a master of manipulation, using cunning and guile to achieve his goals. Sigurd, Snake in the Eye, was a true Viking warlord, a man who lived and breathed battle. He left a trail of blood and chaos in his wake, his name whispered with fear and respect. He was a legend in his own time, and his story continues to fascinate and terrify us centuries later. Olaf Tryggvason. Now here's a Viking who knew how to make an entrance. He burst onto the scene like a thunderbolt, a warrior king with a mission to Christianize Norway by force if necessary. He was a whirlwind of contradictions, this one. He was a devout Christian, yet he had no qualms about spilling blood in the name of his faith. He was a ruthless conqueror, but also a charismatic leader who inspired fierce loyalty in his men. Olaf was a Viking warrior through and through, but he also understood the power of religion, how it could unite a people. He saw Christianity as a way to bring order to the chaos of the Viking world. He waged war against the old gods, tearing down pagan temples and converting his subjects at sword point. He was a man on a mission, driven by a fiery zeal that brooked no opposition. Olaf Tryggvason's reign was short but impactful. He laid the foundation for a Christian Norway, a legacy that continues to this day. He was a warrior, a king, and yes, a religious fanatic. But there's no denying his impact on Viking history, a testament to the power of faith and the enduring allure of the warrior king. Chapter 9. Hastin, a name that struck fear into the hearts of those who lived along the coasts, a phantom who haunted the rivers of Francia. This Viking wasn't a king, no grand titles or fancy lineage. He was a raider, pure and simple, a shadow in the night, with a knack for appearing where you least expected him. They say he sailed up the Seine, a dagger pointed at the heart of Paris. This wasn't just some smash-and-grab raid. Hastin was audacious, bold, some might even say crazy. He knew how to exploit weakness, how to turn fear into a weapon. His longships were like wolves slipping past defences, striking at the heart of empires. He raided along the French coast, ventured into the Mediterranean, even tangled with the Moors in Spain. Hastin was a ghost, a phantom who disappeared as quickly as he arrived, leaving behind a trail of plundered riches and smouldering ruins. He was a master of hit-and-run tactics, a true Viking raider who understood the element of surprise. We don't know how he died, no epic last stand, or glorious saga dedicated to his name, and maybe that's fitting. Hastin, the shadow in the night, vanishing into the mists of history, leaving behind a legacy of chaos and a chilling reminder. Nowhere was safe from the reach of the Vikings. Chapter 10, Halfdan Ragnarsson, another son of Ragnar Lothbrok, another chip off the old block. But Halfdan, he wasn't content with just raiding. He wanted land, power, a kingdom to call his own. And he set his sights on England, leading the great heathen army in a campaign of conquest that left scars on the land for generations. He was a relentless warrior, a cunning strategist, a true son of Ragnar. Where Ivar the Boneless was the brains of the operation, Halfdan was the hammer, crushing his enemies with brute force and unwavering determination. He carved a bloody path through England, defeating kings, burning villages, and claiming vast swathes of land for the Vikings. He was a force of nature, unstoppable, unyielding, driven by a hunger for power and a thirst for vengeance. Halfdan wasn't interested in ruling with a gentle hand. He was a conqueror, a warlord who understood that power flowed from the tip of a sword. He established the Danelaw, a Viking kingdom in the heart of England, a testament to the power of the great heathen army. His reign was short-lived, as was the fate of many Viking conquerors. But his impact on English history was undeniable. Halfdan Ragnarsson, the Hammer of the North, a name whispered with fear and respect, a reminder that the Vikings weren't just raiders, they were conquerors who reshaped the map of Europe. Chapter 10. Thorfinn's Skullsplitter. Thorfinn Skullsplitter. The name alone sends chills down your spine. This wasn't a man you messed with. He was a berserker, a warrior possessed by a primal rage, a force of nature unleashed on the battlefield. They say he earned his name the hard way, splitting skulls and crushing bones with a ferocity that terrified even his own men. He was a whirlwind of violence, a storm of steel and fury, a one-man army fueled by bloodlust. We don't know much about his life, no epic sagas dedicated to his exploits. But the legends that do survive paint a picture of a man who lived for battle, who revelled in the chaos and carnage. Some say he was touched by Odin himself, gifted with superhuman strength and a thirst for blood that couldn't be quenched. Others whispered that he was a demon in human form, a creature of nightmares unleashed upon the world. Whatever the truth, Thorfinn's Skullsplitter left his mark on history. He was a symbol of the Viking berserker, a warrior who embraced the primal fury within, a terrifying reminder of the raw, untamed power that lurked within the heart of every Viking warrior. So there you have it. 10 bloodthirsty bastards who carved their names into history with fire and steel. They were ruthless, ambitious, and utterly fearless. They were the Vikings, and they changed the face of Europe forever. Their stories are brutal, yeah, but they're also a reminder of the power of human will, of the lengths men will go to for glory, for power, for a place in the sagas. They were monsters, some might say, but they were our monsters. If you love Viking history and epic warrior tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video.